And as we speak, we got Quanah Parker Brightman on the line, and thank you for calling in this evening.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'll just give you a chance to introduce yourself, and love to be able to, like we were saying on the line earlier, just be able to talk a little bit about some of the things that are happening in California, and just to share with what's on our hearts. And I know that you also have some. I've been reaching out because I also know that your dad's he's on our prayers and our thoughts, and there's some things that you want to make sure stay in your family, and I wanted to talk about that, so how we can help you do that. So thanks again for calling in.
My name is Quanah Parker Brightman. I'm Executive Director of United Native Americans. I'm also an enrolled citizen of the Lakota Nation. Basically, just to give a brief synopsis of who we are as UNA, we were founded in 1968 in the Greater Bay Area in San Francisco. We were involved in the takeover of Alcatraz, Wounded Knee, a couple long walks across country. We led a group one time that took over Mount Rushmore, reclaimed it for our nation, the Lakota Nation. And of course, fast forward to these times today, we actually were the group that founded the Idle No More movement in the San Francisco Greater Bay Area after getting permission from the Canadian Indians up north, our brothers and sisters up north, to actually organize, the Idle No More movement from the founders of Idle No More in Canada. We've done environmental work pretty much since the beginning in 1968, protecting sacred sites, burial sites, of course, advocating to end the stereotypical negative images that are out there as far as for the northern tribal people and indigenous people worldwide. My father, of course, founded the Native American Studies program at UC Berkeley, along with Dr. Jack D. Forbes, David Risling, and a series of others who helped create the Native American Studies program, which was the main victory that we had during the Civil Rights Movement at its zenith. And at that time, I got to say that, in 1969, we had, out of our whole race, we had 10 Indians who had a PhD. Only 10, because, of course, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, bully Indians around, who was founded under the War Department, did not want us to, have a chance to have a higher education. And now we have about, anywhere from about 35 to 45,000 Indians who've gone on to become doctors, lawyers, engineers, come back to their tribal reservations and become leaders in our communities, educated leaders, I must say. And it's very good to know that, we've made such a big, accomplishment for our community. And, of course, all those out there who've gone through, an educational system, gotten their degree, or even just gone to college and, picked up a few classes. We wouldn't have had that opportunity if it wasn't for my father and Dr. Forbes and David Risling, and, of course, our group that was founded out there on the West Coast where the Civil Rights Movement was started back in the late 60s for us. So it's a true honor to be here today. Been extremely busy, dealing with a lot on my plate. Of course, yesterday we were at the state capitol over here in Sacramento, California, for a national event calling out what's been going on as far as parental alienation. And for those of you who do, who understand what that means where one parent will have sole custody or majority custody over a child, and they'll basically try to alienate the other parent and make them look, negative to the child, and it affects our children in a very negative way. And we were calling attention to this, of course, and I wanted to bring up the fact that, these state courts, these family courts, are still ignoring the Indian Child Welfare Act, even though that's federal law, which trumps state law. And we're still fighting, of course, to keep our children in Indian homes, safe Indian homes. This is something that's been going on since the boarding school system. And, of course, our organization was investigating the Indian hospitals, Indian boarding schools, from the late 60s all the way to where we're at today. That was one of the main things that UNA was able to bring forth through the warpath. The first international Indian newspaper published 4 Indian issues, circled globally, and it got the civil rights movement started. It was like the equivalent of Facebook is today, or Instagram, or any of the social media networks that we use to organize now, the tools that we have today. They help spread our message and help decolonize a lot of people, re-educate them about the myths and stereotypes that are out there. Been doing it for a long time, and I'm really honored, to be an advocate for our people. I'm really honored to be able to bring voice to the voiceless again, and do it in not only the state level but the national level, and of course bring about change through different legislation that we're working on, trying to pass, and of course different laws that we have already implemented in the 46 years that we've been going as far as United Native Americans.
I find it more that I learn myself being in school and learning about the law system and understanding the policies and what needs to be done. We have to be present, and I appreciate you guys being there and always being there. And I just, you brought up sacred sites, and I'm really myself, like, I feel like the connection between the sacred sites and our old way, and it's important that these ways are preserved. And without your voice there, I like also what you said about the civil rights movement, because a lot of times people don't realize that it did get the Native movement was the spark through across all Turtle Island for that to happen.
Well, thank you, God. We've been doing it for a long time, and of course, most people don't give credit to not only our organization, but of course, NCAI. They were the first national Indian organization that's been doing it, and they're still doing it. They're the oldest and largest Indian organization that we have, and they're a lobby group, and they're pretty good at it. And quite honestly, a lot of our tribal leaders are part of NCAI. And of course, you had National Indian Youth Council, then you had UNA, and then you had the American Indian Movement. We are different groups. Some of us service different issues. Some of us are in different regions of the country. But the majority of the groups that you hear about today are, of course, I Don't Know More movement. You hear about, of course, National Congress of American Indians. You hear about AIM, United Native Americans, and then Indigenous Environmental Network. And there's a number of other groups that are doing positive things out there, to promote healing and well-briety for our people. It takes all of us. It's not just one group who wants to, try to masquerade around like they're the one and only group that is advocating for our people, that everybody's a member of their group. That's not the case. And, that's a stereotype that needs to actually be decolonized itself. There's different tools for different issues that we're dealing with in our community. But I'm really honored, of course, to be a part of your show. There's a number of things that we're trying to actually get passed out here in the state of California as far as reform in environmental law. Actually, this past Earth Day, which was the 45th year of Earth Day, which was, of course, founded out here in the state of California, Senator McGuire recently introduced a bill to forever ban offshore oil drilling in the state of California. And that's, of course, SB 788, which is a current bill that we're trying to build some momentum around. And we're asking for any tribes who would like to actually express their sovereignty and sign on to this particular bill, be it through passing a resolution through their tribe, or be it they contact Senator McGuire's office and sign the petition that he has on his webpage. We really need all the local indigenous community and, of course, any environmental group to come out there and help us to put an end to this offshore drilling, to save our oceans, to save our natural habitats from being destroyed, like what's going on over there in the Gulf of Mexico. And if you've seen the oil spills in some of these places where, It's just been an environmental catastrophe and disaster on the communities there. And it affects the recreation, it affects the fishermen, it affects everything that goes on there. And we'd really like to put it out there for people, especially here in California. We'd like to see all the California tribes, step forward and help out in that. We have over 100 tribes here in this state. I think it's time that, all of them step forward and help in protecting our Mother Earth, not just through words or not just through prayers, but also by signing on to these documents so that we can actually enforce our sovereignty, use our sovereign immunity that the federal government has given us so that we can actually, bring voice to our community, make sure that our voice is heard in the state capitol and nationally. There's also a number of other things that we're working on as far as United Native Americans, which are, of course, involving the fact that we broke the color barrier in Major League Baseball. We had about 30 Indians who came into the majors before Jackie Robinson. And that's an accomplishment that's not known. It's not celebrated yet. There's a number of, periodicals out there about this, but we'd like to see about Major League Baseball, not only ending the mascot issue where they're depicting us in a negative light, but also to honor us with the National Day of honoring for the Indians who broke the color barrier before Jackie Robinson, starting with Louis Saxaloxis in 1897. And, of course, we had the great Charles Albert Bender. And, of course, they called him the Chief, Charles Albert Bender. He's in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And it's interesting that he's in the Hall of Fame. He has a bust there. But, unfortunately, they're still giving Jackie Robinson, this huge honor, which, quite honestly, yeah, he was the first African-American. That's good. That's good for them. That's good for their community. But what about our community? We're not trying to take anything from Robinson, but at the same time, hey, what about some recognition for our people, our community? We were decimated by, the Spaniards and by the English and by the French. And, we're left, to try to rebuild our great nations. And, here we are. Most of our children these days don't know about these heroes. They're not being taught that in public schools, K through 12. And that's something that we need to do. We need to teach them about our great heroes, all the people who've contributed, very good things to our society that have helped advance our society, not just through, the movement, but through, of course, arts, through the artwork, through, movies, through everything that you can think of. There's a lot of things that need to be brought to the forefront so that our tribal youth don't continue to commit suicide, don't continue to beat themselves up and, abuse themselves and abuse alcohol and drugs. And we protect our tribal youth so that our future generations, the next 7 generations, will be there.
So, Quanah, would you say, I've been talking about this myself a lot this week, too, that the stories Native people really need to start telling the history, because I see a lot in the communities, all the communities that I've gone into, that history seems to only start with the European viewpoint, and we have to take that back, because these land. I mean, I'm here. I know I'm in Squaxin's territory or Nisqually or Puyallup. I know that this is their land, and so the story begins with Indigenous people. How do we get our people involved? Sometimes because of the things that have happened in the past, you talked a lot about in boarding schools. For one of them, they walk around with trauma, and so to be able to get them to talk, to share, how would we go about that?
Well, I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there. Is our people are very hurt. And, it doesn't take Albert Einstein to figure out that, we were decimated by these particular, conquerors who came to our country and didn't want to share things. They just wanted to conquer. And, of course, they came here in the search of gold. They stole a majority of our natural resources, and they're still, inflicting pain on our Mother Earth and stealing our natural resources. one thing that I see that we can do, as far as healing our people, is, of course, through, improving, the Title VII program. That's already in place. There's a number of programs that are already there. The groundwork has been laid by a number of, the national groups, like NCAI, like UNA, who've done the work as far as implementing these programs that are already in existence. But we need more advocates to go out and get an education, get certified, and go into the classrooms and start empowering not just our children, but sharing our stories with non-Indigenous, community people, so that they understand we're still here. These are our great heroes. This is our story. This book that they have, history books. Well, it's his story. And that's the problem, is we're trying to decolonize, our people when, quite honestly, they've been reprogrammed to think another way. Most people, have lost their indigenous ways. They've lost their traditional ways. They don't practice their own ceremonies. Some tribes have had to adopt, like our ceremonies, like bringing the sweat lodge to a number of tribes. I've seen some tribes, especially out here in the state of California, that sing our songs and practice our religion. But then, quite honestly, some of them, they seem a little upset, that they're singing our songs. And then, quite honestly, hey, if you want to borrow any tribe song and sing it, you should honor them, because you're already singing their language. You're already speaking their language. Why not honor them instead of trying to alienate them? And that's what I've seen out here in the state of California, especially with the gaming industry that goes on out here. You're getting $7 billion in Indian gaming in the state of California. $7 billion. Now, look at what's going on here in the state of California. The people out here, the traditionalists, a lot of them have been hurt by, of course, this mechanism which is called Indian gaming. Now, my aunt, her name is Gay Kingman. She's executive director of the Great Plains Tribal Chairmen's Association. She was one of the founders of NIGA, National Indian Gaming Association. So she helped create the Indian gaming industry, and she created it because she wanted us to better ourselves, to help build our sovereign nations back up, be it through, educational centers, improving our health centers, both on and off the reservations and rancherias, and also, for have tribal housing for all indigenous people. But then you're still seeing a lot of indigenous people, struggling with not only drug addiction, alcohol addiction, but then they're also struggling with homelessness. That's very sad, considering that these tribes, these gaming tribes, have all this money and they're not properly investing in the future to save our nations. That's really sad. We've had to come out and actually blast these people for their greediness, their fascism, and quite honestly, these hate crimes that they practice against themselves, as far as the disenrolling and termination, this new form of termination that we're seeing now, as far as through disenrollment, where they paper genocide you. They say, oh, well, we didn't like the fact that you came out and, spoke the truth at our tribal council meeting last month. So we're going to disenroll you, your cousin, your family, and you guys are no longer members of our nation. And then they forcefully boot them out of their own ancestral lands. Meanwhile, what was wrong with bringing voice to an issue in your community? It wasn't like some of these people have gone out there and, committed acts of violence. I've seen a lot of these corrupt tribal councils actually bring their BIA police out there and actually forcefully remove families. Some of them are some of my friends who are out there in Robinson Rancheria, where I've seen my friends, the Duncans, get hurt and harassed. Meanwhile, they're the actual chiefs. They're the actual leaders of that community. They've been the leaders of that community for over 200 years, some 300 to 400 years. So it's really sad, for me, as a leader of today, to see Indian gaming on where it is today. The fact that the money is being squandered on these greedy, fascist, uneducated Indians who continue to use that money in an improper way. and hurt our community instead of being champions for our community. They're almost the same. Actually, they are the same as these corrupt politicians that we have in Washington, D.C., who don't honor our treaties. What's the difference? You're an elected official. If you're an elected official, that means you have a job and a responsibility. You have an oath to protect your people, not to line your pockets with money. I'm disgusted with that. And yeah, they need to be shamed out. Yeah, they need to be called out. And quite honestly, some of them deserve to be incarcerated because they are criminals. And they need to be treated as criminals for the acts of hatred that they have towards our community.
So getting your voice out there and being heard, I think, is an important step to bringing people into that awareness. And, I feel like, what you were saying, what I feel in my heart is the colonial mindset has made its way in through all of us. We've all been programmed to a certain degree, and now it's time for us to really take care of our people. You were talked about the earth, and we have the ability now with gaming and other avenues to be able to be a stronger voice. And I feel like that most of them are doing that. But I do read what you're saying, and I have like, there was I guess his name was Tex Hall not too long ago. He was in the news for what he was doing to his own people there, and it is discouraging. And to be able to bring this awareness out, the community, from what I read, was really afraid to be able to do that. So your voice today being heard, I think, is important.
Believe me, and that's the other thing. That's the other thing I'd like to bring up is the fact that, I know a number of people, who want to sit here and look at, a number of these groups that are supposedly advocating for our people that quite honestly otherwise are ineffective, and they're getting a large sum of money from non-Indigenous who don't know anything about Indian affairs. And one of those groups is, of course, they're called the International Indian Treaty Council. They were founded in 1974 in the state of South Dakota. Now, their little group has their little office over there in San Francisco. There's no UN business that happens in San Francisco as far as the UN building that's there. Whenever there's UN business, they're in New York or they're in Geneva. So why is it that the International Indian Treaty Council, which is now the supposed host group of the Alcatraz festivities twice a year, has been put in this position when they weren't even in existence when the Alcatraz takeover occurred, which our organization had over half of the people who took over Alcatraz were our members. And if you look at all the historical pictures, video footage, and press clippings, you're going to see our members over there. You're not going to see AIM there. AIM showed up after the fact, just like they hit the national level years after the fact. And I don't mean to cause no beef here, but let me tell you something. If you're profiting off of my mother and father's work and our work that we've put in for 46 years, yeah, I have a problem with that. You don't like it? Oh, well. I'm standing up for my mother, my father, and my legacy. This is mine. Don't like it? Well, that's your problem. Yeah. Your opinion of me doesn't matter when I have truth and facts on my side. And if you're an elder and you were there, then you know what, quite honestly, speak the truth. Don't be scared to get killed like Anime Aquash. Don't think that, that we should live in a society where we should fear our advocacy group called the American Indian Movement. I think it's time that they start doing some real advocacy and started, instead of just singing songs like powwow people. Powwow people are entertainers. That's their realm. That's what they do. Entertainers. Cool. Right on. Hey, man, I go to powwows time to time. I enjoy them too. But I don't sit there and go into their realm and try to act like I'm their boss. Okay? I show up to enjoy myself. But if some powwow people who aren't educated in movement ways, in creating change, positive change, lasting change, come in and try to act like they're going to be my boss, yeah, I got a problem with that.
Right.
You got to be able to effectively advocate to change the law, change the system, not just go up there, sing a song, run away.
So how can people get a hold of you? Because I got another person on the line that I need to get on the air. So how can people get a hold of you to find out these things and to help?
Oh, sure. I mean, you got to remember, there's a number of groups out there that are doing positive things. It's not just United Native Americans. There's a number of groups out there, as I've said. Okay, but if you'd like to get a hold of the group that's been doing it and founded the Red Power movement in 1968 in the greater Bay Area, San Francisco, that's of course United Native Americans. Now, you can find us on Facebook, you can find us on Instagram, you can find us on Twitter, you can find us on YouTube, you can find us on the web. We're all over. We've done tremendous things for 46 years. My number directly to our office is 510-672-7187. I'd also like to remind the community that when Dennis Banks was on the 10 Most Wanted, he came to our group and asked for help and asked for sanctuary. And my father, my mother, and our family were harassed and arrested by the FBI to save that man. And that man has not done enough to honor my mother, my father, and our organization in sharing in the spotlight.
I appreciate you sharing with us this evening, and I hope that we could continue this talk at a later time.
Thank you.
All right.
Take it easy.
Yeah, you too.
Doksha.
Doksha.